The Ruden Report podcast is brought to you by the Westport Library. Welcome to the Ruden Report podcast. I'm Dave Ruden. We're getting ready for the final week of the FCIAC regular season before we get into the playoffs, and we have a whole bunch of different storylines going on. We're not at a loss for material right now. I think there's a lot of commonality between the boys and the girls sports, and joining me to talk a little bit about that right now is my good friend Ian Nicholas, who starting tomorrow is also my senior intern. Ian, how you doing?
Doing good, Dave. Happy to start off the senior internship experience. That means my high school career is wrapping up. And even though the high school season is wrapping up for a lot of teams, regular season-wise, we still have so much to cover when it comes to the FCIAC playoff race starting this upcoming week, and then, of course, states a week later. So it's going to be a phenomenal ride. It's going to be a great experience working alongside you, and we've got a lot to cover today, talking about what we think are the title contenders at this point for some of the major sports in the FCIAC.
I'm glad I'm going to get to spend the final weeks of your high school career with you. We'll have a lot of good video and interviews and things that we'll be promoting on social media. But we got a good show for you right now. I had an interview that I taped a little while ago with the star of the new Canaan boys lacrosse team, Chris Canet. The Rams are one of the hottest teams, along with Darien and the FCIAC, winners of 6 of the last 7 after a 3-3 start. So I had a good talk with Chris, and we'll find out what the difference has been. One thing, I think if there's a difference in girls and guys sports in the 4 sports that get the most publicity. I'll just real briefly, the girls side, it seems like there's 2 favorites and 2 top contenders, both in girls lacrosse and softball. Softball right now, I think it's going to come down to St. Joseph, and particularly Lauren Wazakowski, their ace pitcher. We know how big pitching is in softball, and it's going to come down to her and the cadets against the Bats of Fairfield Ludlow. The Falcons are one of the most aggressive offensive teams I've seen in some time, and right now we'll see if the 2 of them get to the final. They're going to be heavy favorites. We got a couple of teams like Staples and maybe Trumbull, and definitely Stanford that could sneak in. And I think we got the same sort of storyline in girls lacrosse, where we have 2 heavy favorites. New Canaan has to be favorite number 1 right now because they beat Darien twice so far and are undefeated. And the Blue Wave are undefeated except for the losses to New Canaan, and I think they're a different team. So I think there's some other strong teams this year, like Wilton, like Greenwich, Staples, Fairfield Ludlow. But I think right now heavy favorites between Darien and New Canaan. So that's really the girls' side. But I think right now, from the guys' side, parity in terms of having a lot of good teams that are going to be up for championships is going to be the storyline. And especially, why don't we start with baseball, because baseball this year, there's a little different dynamic in terms of all 16 teams are qualifying for the playoffs. We have the end of the regular season Monday and Wednesday, and then first round games coming up on Friday. And Ian, we got a lot of, I'll let you give your take, but we got a lot of good baseball teams in the hunt for the FCIAC title.
Yeah, we do, Dave. And we saw a phenomenal game over this past week. We saw a phenomenal game between Fairfield Ward and Staples. Those are 2 of the top teams in the league. Ward's got a lot of firepower. Staples is a perennial contender. They've got a great program. They know how to win the big game. Norwalk is a team that isn't a title contender, but they're starting to pick up a lot of big wins, and they have a few really big games this week. Greenwich has picked up big win after big win, proving that Coach Adrian Arango's squad is the real deal, and they can make a deep run. And we all know what Trumbull can do with their top ace and Krause, and the rest of their lineup is really strong. And there are probably a few teams that I'm leaving out there in title contention because, as you mentioned, with the single elimination deep playoff pool this year for FCIACs, every team's got a really strong starting pitcher, the top contenders. They can all win a game over each other, can't they?
Yeah, baseball is not a single elimination sport. So a top pitcher is like gold to have in the postseason. And the dynamic, and this is one area, and we talked a little bit about it in the podcast last week, the one area where I think this year's format may lend itself to a higher seed having a higher chance to win is the middle seeds that play each other in the first round are more than likely going to throw their aces to get into the next round. And the top seeds in some cases are going to be able to get away with throwing their number twos, in some cases maybe even number threes or fours. And so they're going to be a little bit better aligned come a week from Monday when we get to the quarterfinals. And, you know, some of those teams are going to have even a bigger advantage than they would have if they had to face a middle of the pack team's number one. But the middle of the pack is pretty wide and deep. I'm just looking. I always make a list each week of possible games to cover before I decide what I'm gonna go to. And just looking at Monday's schedule, I mean, I have 4 games written down that are all going to have really big implications for teams that hope to finish in the top 8, and in some cases the top 4 and 2. You have Trumbull at Wilton, you have Ridgefield at West Hill, you have New Canaan at Staples, and you have Greenwich and Norwalk. And after Brian McMahon upset Fairfield Ward on Friday night, right now we're looking at Wednesday, Ward and Greenwich close out the regular season, so that could be for the 1 seed. Good chance they could, depending on what happens, both finish in the top 2. The Greenwich still has to go to Norwalk, so that's another difficult game. And then you have Trumbull, Ridgefield, and Staples right now that have that are on the inside track to finish in the top 4. And why do you want to finish in the top 4? Because the quarterfinal games will also be at the higher seeds. So if you finish in the top 4 and form holds, you get to play 2 games at home before going to neutral sites for the semifinals and the final. And again, you just named the teams I mentioned that were on the schedule for Monday. They're about 6 teams that you wouldn't really be shocked if they won the championship.
Yeah, as we mentioned, it's a really deep pool. And with the single elimination this year, just like always, but the deeper pool, we could see some more upsets. I think that's going to be a really great thing to see, Dave. And I'll be at the Richfield West Hill game tomorrow. You're sending me out there for a little bit of a video report. So
yeah, we're putting you on duty at Viking Country.
In Viking Country. Those are 2 good middle-of-the-pack teams that aren't necessarily getting a ton of hype right now, but Richfield's got a high-powered offense, and West Hill's also picked up some quality wins. So those are 2 teams that people should keep an eye out for and not be shocked if they make a deep run. And before we move on to boys lacrosse, as you mentioned or alluded to a little bit, Wednesday could be a really huge game between Ward and Greenwich for the number 1 seed. You want to give us a little bit of preview of how you think that one will potentially shake up between 2 powerhouses fighting for the number 1 spot?
It'll be interesting how the coaches play it, and just going back to what you were saying, Ridgefield's and they don't think I like them in Ridgefield, and that's not the case. But Ridgefield right now, if the season ends, is going to be a top 4 seed. So that team, I saw them for the first time on Friday against Norwalk, and those guys hit the heck out of the ball, and they have 2 really good pitchers that are going to give them a big edge once they get if they get past the first round. So they have pitching depth there. But going back to Greenwich and Ward, you have 2 really good teams that you could play a 7-game series. Excuse me, and it's going to go 7 games. So I don't know how things are going to shake out in terms of the pitching rotations, who they're gonna throw on Monday, who they're gonna throw on Wednesday. Are they going to treat Wednesday? They're probably, the way the schedule is set up, they can treat Wednesday almost like it's a championship game, because they probably will be in a position in the first round on Friday where they can come back and throw a number 2 or a 3, and then have their number 1 if they and with Ward they have a couple of number 1s. Greenwich, obviously their ace is Miles Langhorne, but they could set up their pitching in a lot of different ways. It's if it's 1-2, how big a priority do you want to put on being number 1 in terms of how you got your pitching rotation set up? So I think both I think both teams want to win the regular season title. They're competitive, and I think with this new format where they're going to have an easier first round game than if they went right to the quarterfinals, they're going to be able to play it like it's for some sort of a championship. And winning a regular season in the FCIAC is a lot harder than winning the championship.
Yeah, really good point. So that's going to probably be decided on Wednesday. So make sure to stay tuned for that one and get out and see that game and follow the coverage on your site. It's going to be really phenomenal. Now let's shift gears a little bit to the boys lacrosse pool right now. Darienne's been running through everyone, Dave, and I think everyone has them as the favorite right now, as they're one of the top teams nationally. They competed with Brunswick in their out-of-conference game. That game went into overtime, just kind of proving how good of a team they really are. But we are finally starting to see those teams around them at the top start to gain steam. New Canaan, who had some early season losses to Darien, Richfield, and Staples, they ran through Richfield last week at home. They've picked up some really quality wins. Chris Canet and company, the players around Chris, really starting to step up for New Canaan. And they've got a big week this week as they host Darien, and then they host Staples later in the week. And then Staples, speaking of them, they just came off their biggest win of the year, arguably, beating a Richfield team, which is starting to slump in a shootout. So really, New Canaan and Staples right now are starting to gain some momentum. And let's not forget, Greenwich is a pretty good team as well, who has proven at full strength they can get the big win too.
And let's not forget Wilton either. So, it's I was at the Ridgefield Staples game yesterday. It was about as even a game as you could play. Aiden Best really pump-started the Staples offense in the final quarter when they were down 3 goals and helped rally the team. And Ridgefield is just their storyline has been draw controls and how they've struggled all year, and they've really done a great job. And their defense yesterday helped offset the fact that I don't know what the possession time was, but certainly Staples controlled it. Ridgefield's doing a good job for a team that doesn't have the ball as much as the opponent, but we're getting to the point now where if you want to keep playing, you're going to have to do more than that. So, right now Darienne's the favorite. There's no way for Darien not to be the favorite. We'll see what happens when they play New Canaan, but they're undefeated in the league, have beaten everybody by they've never had to sweat. They've been in some competitive games in the FCIAC. Obviously, they lost to Brunswick, but they haven't really had to sweat in any of their FCIAC games. I'm really curious to see if New Canaan, which is the hottest team outside of the Blue Wave, if they make them sweat and if they make them lose. So that certainly would change the dynamic. But you look at this could be the best Staples team ever. New Canaan is back to being New Canaan. Greenwich has been very quietly a solid team. Same with Wilton, and we have Ridgefield there. So you're looking at 6 teams where right now, as we sit here going into the final week of the regular season, you have a favorite, and you have 5 teams that, if you held a round robin, might all finish 500 against each other.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see how the latter part of this week's schedule with that New Canaan Darien game pans out, because Darien, as you've mentioned, when they've played the top teams this year, they've really been running through them. They got a big win over Wilton last week. They beat New Canaan at home a few weeks ago. they've beaten all the top teams in the league, and they've beaten them handedly. And really, they haven't shown any signs of slowing down Darien. And that's the thing that New Canaan and Staples are looking to rise to the challenge of getting Darien. But it's not like Darien has done any slumping recently. It seems like they've only been getting stronger. They just got one of their stars back from injury a week ago, too. So Coach Braymeyer, he's got a team that can definitely compete and win an FCIAC championship this year because they're still as strong now as they were at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, the return of Hope Mathias is really giving them just another all-state offensive weapon. So there is just scoring aplenty from their attack, and they don't have a weakness right now. So it's always fun. This has really been, considering there hasn't been any interstate play and we haven't had the great games that we like to see between the top teams and the other teams in the region. This has really been just a great regular season. It's just been a lot of good lacrosse, a lot of good teams playing a lot of close games, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the playoffs. And as mentioned here, New Canaan is a team that is back in the title talk, and they get to finish up the season against Darien, and then they're home Saturday against Staples, and hoping to play for at the very least a number 2 seed. And if they beat Darien, could they be a number 1 seed? That might be tough the way they do the seeding, but at least they'll make people think about things a little bit. And the Rams are a different team than when they were sitting there at 3-3 the last time I saw them, when they lost to Darien 15-6. And we're going to take a break here, and then coming back, someone who could tell us a lot about the change with New Canaan, their star midi, Chris Canet. We'll be right back. We're back now and getting ready for the final week of FCIAC Boys Lacrosse, and it's been a great season right now. A bunch of storylines. Darien undefeated is probably the biggest one, and the fact that teams 2 through 5 or 6 right now, I think on any given day, could beat each other. But the other story that I think is kind of slipped through the cracks right now, last time I saw the New Canaan boys lacrosse team play, they lost to Darien 15-6, and we're sitting at 3-3, very un-Ram-like at the time. And I will get to see them this week against both Darien again and Staples. And since I saw them, they've won 6 of their last 7 games, and certainly a different team. And let's find out right now why and what's changed with my guest, and that's Ram star Chris Canet. Chris, thanks for taking the time here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, let's so what have I missed out since I last saw you at Darien? What's the difference between New Canaan then and now?
I would say the biggest difference between then and now is we are playing with much more selflessness, and we're playing more as a team. Back then, I think we were trying to win games as individuals, but I mean, we're at our best when we are getting assisted goals and filling up the stat sheet with multiple names and communicating on defense. So I think the biggest change you're seeing in our team is the selflessness.
Do you think you got off to a slow start, that maybe guys were pressing and trying to do too much? Because I know a lot of the guys on the team, and there aren't a lot of guys with big egos there. So it wasn't guys trying to pad their stats. Maybe it was just too many people trying to do too much at the time.
Yes. I mean, in a big game like that, everybody wants to make their mark and help the team out best they can. And I think we needed a mindset change of, if I pass the ball one more time, maybe that will lead to a goal for my team rather than me trying to make the play. So I think it's more if I am because we are. That is the mentality we have picked up. Okay,
I like that. That's pretty good. That's a good T-shirt motto. I like that one. You guys should get some shirts made up for that before the postseason. That'd be pretty cool. I like that a lot. That's one of the better ones I've heard. I've got to admit, in terms of creativity, that's a 9.5. Was it a little shocking to you? I was at your opener and you lost to Staples 7-3, and certainly Staples is a really good team. So you look at what you've both done, and that's not like a shocking upset. I guess maybe if there was a little bit of surprise, it was the margin. Were you guys caught a little bit off guard just from that start opening night?
I mean, it'd been a long time since we all played as a team, and we had a bunch of young guys that has never played in a varsity game before. So, I mean, I would say we were just, it was fresh and new, and we didn't really have everything we needed going to that game in the sense of other games under our belt. We didn't have any scrimmages, but I mean, credit to Staples. They came with a great game plan, and they played a very good game. And what we've learned as New Canaan team is that it's really us versus us. I mean, if we minimize the mistakes and play our brand of lacrosse, we think there's no team that we can't beat. But credit to Staples, they played an amazing game.
Now, you guys have certainly turned it around, and you've done so against quality competition. I mean, you look at some of the teams you've beaten. You've beaten Ridgefield. Glastonbury is a pretty good upstate team that you beat 11-7 yesterday. Was there any kind of a turning point? Was there any moment or any game or anything like that you think kind of changed things around, or was it just sort of gradual and during the normal course of things?
Yes, in my eyes, it was the Ridgefield game that we played recently that I think was our glaring game that was a mark of a turning point, just because our offense was just clicking and our defense was playing lockdown too. Players like freshman Dylan Stevens having an amazing season, and Braden Sweeney and Holden Busby. Like we just had guys that were communicating on defense, playing an amazing game, and on the offensive end, we were just finally clicking for what felt like one of the first times of the season where we were starting to reach our full potential, because I still don't think we have reached our full potential, and we have a lot of untapped potential on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. But especially offensively, we adopted what we call our Ubuntu mentality, which is the I am because we are mentality. And what that basically encompasses is selflessness. And if you score, I score. If he makes the assist, I make the assist. The ongoing joke is however many goals we put up, each individual player has that many jokes, has many goals. So it's just a sense of togetherness, and I think that's what made our team click and win that game.
Ridgefield was the first really elite opponent you had played since the loss to Darien, and you guys got off to a great start that day too. It seemed like Hayden Shin won just about every draw at the beginning of the game, and that had to be big. Just you're playing your first real big game since the Darien game against a top opponent in the league, and to get off to that kind of start really had to help the team.
100%. I mean, Hayden has been so big for us. I mean, everybody on our team knew how good he is and how good he can be this season, and he's living up to that in these recent games. He's just playing amazing. He's helping give our team an advantage.
What was the mood of the team after Darien? Just you never like losing to Darien to begin with, and it was a very atypical Darien-New Canaan game. Most of your games are within a goal or a couple of goals.
It was definitely a regular game for us, losing especially in that fashion by that much. And I feel like after any big rivalry game like that, we're going to have a bad taste in our mouth, and we chomping at the bit to play them again. We have been, and we are looking forward to this Thursday very, very much. And I would say after that game, we just knew that we did not play our brand of lacrosse, and that we want a chance to play them again as soon, as fast as possible, because we want to show the FCIAC, we want to prove to ourselves that that's not the New Canaan team that we are. And we've grown a lot since we played them last. And after that game, I mean, obviously no one likes losing that rivalry game. So we were just chomping at the bit to play them again.
You get Norwalk on Tuesday, and then Thursday comes that opportunity. What do you expect to be different than from the first time you played them?
I mean, we're just a completely different team. So what I expect to be different is on the defensive end, communication, and on the offensive end, I would say just ball movement and unselfishness.
It's got to be. Was it tough early for you? Because obviously you're one of the best players in the state, one of the best players in the country, and you're going to be man marked. You're going to have 2 people following you. You're going to have 3 people following you, and it seems like one difference is other guys now are stepping up, and the offense is coming from a bunch of different places. But when the team was struggling and you're being followed all over the field like that, how frustrating is it?
I mean, I love the challenge, and I know how good my teammates are and have been this entire season. And I love the way my teammates have responded, and they're definitely stepping up to the task. And I mean, the only reason I'm having any success is because of my teammates and them putting me in the correct positions to be successful. So I mean, lacrosse truly a team sport, and I mean, I couldn't be successful without my teammates, and my teammates could be successful without each other. So, I mean, it's amazing to see how they've stepped up and how they are playing amazing.
It sounds like, and this has happened to a lot of teams, especially teams that don't have all senior starters or predominantly senior starters. Just seems like it took you guys a little while to find your mojo and get yourselves going. Maybe more so just because you missed that year last year, and it took you. That was something that the veteran teams found it easier early in the year, and it just took you guys maybe a week or 2 longer to kind of find your groove.
I would definitely agree. I would definitely agree. I mean, losing that season last year, we lost out on a lot of team and individual development as lacrosse players. And I mean, chemistry is something that is so important in all sports, and especially lacrosse. I feel like we've definitely started clicking and finding our chemistry in these last couple 6-7 games. And I mean, I would much rather be clicking towards the end of the season than have a good start. So I'm so happy that we are finding our groove towards the end of the season, going into the playoffs.
This week's almost you couldn't ask for a better playoff tune-up. I mean, the first 2 games are going to be like playoff games because it's going to be teams you very likely will see once or twice again. You've got Darien, and then you finish the regular season in what should be another huge game, especially for playoff seeding with Staples. Is this the theme in New Canaan, this revenge week?
I would just say we want to prove to everyone, but most importantly, prove to ourselves that we deserve to be the number 1 team in the FCIAC, and we deserve all the respect in the world, because I mean that we've been working so hard at it, and we want to show ourselves that we've all our hard work is going to pay off, and show that we can beat teams like Staples, like Darien, and we're not overlooking these last 2 very important regular season games before the playoffs. So we can't wait.
Plus the fact, and obviously lacrosse is a little bit different in terms of it's seeded, and the coaches look at strength of schedule, and it's not just strictly by record, but you guys also have a great shot. I mean, I think if you guys win out, who knows what happens if you win out and compared with if you have another win over Darien, but at the very least, if you win out, I think you're looking at no worse than the 2nd seed.
As far as players go, we are only going to be able to control what we can control. So we're not going to be worried about what seed we are. We're just going to be worried about that next game and how we can best prepare, no matter the opponent, to best face our next opponent.
Is it starting to hit you a little bit, the last day of the season, and hopefully the Rams are playing in it, is 4 weeks from yesterday. We're taping this on Sunday afternoon. Is it starting to hit you that your high school career is going to come to an end soon?
It definitely is starting to hit me, and it's crazy. I feel like it was just yesterday I was a freshman on the team, and now, I mean, tomorrow is going to be our last day of school for our seniors for on an internship. So it's just a different next chapter's coming soon. And we just, as a senior class, we can hope we can leave New Canaan and the New Canaan lacrosse program as a better place than when we found it, and hopefully give the New Canaan program 2 championships in 2021.
How hard has it been for you as a spring fall athlete? You missed your entire junior season with lacrosse, and then you got that you didn't have a regular football season. You got to play in the league that was set up for a few weeks, but obviously it's not the same thing. What's it like? I can't imagine where you're getting ready for your spring season of your junior year, and it's like you have to fast forward a year and basically miss a year of your high school career.
Yeah, no, it was no one could have predicted this, and it's very unfortunate that we lost a full spring season. I mean, it's something that when you're up and coming in an elementary school, middle school kid watching these high school games, you dream about playing, and you love playing. Like I wouldn't give up a high school game, and no matter what sport, for anything. It's just the funnest thing in the world you can do. Play with your brothers that you grew up with. So, I mean, it was definitely unfortunate to miss out on that season, but I mean, we're so thankful we have the opportunity to play this season. So we're trying to make the most out of it.
You decided on, and you could have gone anywhere you wanted to. You decided on Penn. What stood out about the school and the lacrosse program for you?
Right as I went, I visited a couple times, and I love the city of Philadelphia, and I love the perfect mix between amazing academics and the amazing lacrosse culture and team. And I think what stood out the most was just going to a place where I can get an amazing blend of world-class education and world-class lacrosse. So I could be more excited to go.
You're one of those guys that could have gone and played college football as well. Kind of curious always. There's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but it seems that the elite football lacrosse players, more of them seem to be going the lacrosse route. Was that a hard call for you in terms of which sport to play? And if so, what was the deciding factor?
I mean, 100%. It was definitely difficult. I love football so much, and I love lacrosse so much. But it's always different. It's always difficult to decide between them. And growing up, I always said, when people ask me what's my favorite sport, I would say whatever season I'm in, that is my favorite sport. So, I mean, I can tell you that my mom is definitely very thankful that I'm playing lacrosse. I would say that the deciding factor was that I love the sport of lacrosse, and it gave me the opportunity to play at Penn, and I couldn't pass on that.
Sounds like pretty sound reasoning to me. Well, listen, after talking to you here, I really think a week from Monday, we should see the Rams warming up with "I Am Because We Are" shirts. I think that I like that a lot. I think you guys got to go out and order those. And if you do, I'm an XL. I want one of those. I think that's pretty cool. That's actually I'm all in on this right now. I like creative, catchy, motivating phrases, and that's the best one I've heard in a while. It's not a recycled one. So I think we should see you guys warming up on that. And if you do, I want one, but I won't be wearing it to a New Canaan game because I have to stay impartial. But Chris, I don't say this just about anyone, but as good an athlete as you are, I've gotten to know you real well these last 4 years, and you truly are a better person than you are an athlete. And people out there know how good a football and lacrosse player you are. So, I want to congratulate you on a great career, and I want to wish you the very best of luck in the final month of your high school season. And thanks a lot for taking the time here to join me.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, and that's Chris Canet from the New Canaan Boys lacrosse team, and we'll be back in a moment. We're back, and again, I want to thank Chris Canet for taking the time to join me. He's, like I said in the interview, and we say a lot of times that kids are better people than they are athletes. And I mean, when I say it, I mean it. I don't throw that out gratuitously, and that's true with Chris. Ian, you go to school with Chris. Anything, any insights, anything you want to say about him?
I do want to say this, and I give him a lot of credit as a senior captain for stepping up over the last few weeks and righting the ship with this team, because I've known from the beginning of the year how talented these guys are. And it was a shame to see how they had fallen a little bit, but they're right back on track, as we've mentioned throughout this podcast. And that's a credit to his leadership. He is one of the best leaders I've seen over the last few years at New Canaan High School. It's natural. It's passionate. He just always has the right thing to say at the right time. And I played football with him. He was a great football player. I wasn't too much.
I hope you didn't hit him too hard when you played with him.
Trust me, I wasn't fast enough to reach him, Dave. He's a great athlete, and he's just a great guy. And he's Mr. New Canaan. He has been for a lot of his life, and he could be this guy who doesn't have to be as nice and personable as he is, but he is just the perfect person too. And he's got a chance to upset the Blue Wave on Thursday. I think he really does. His team does, and that's why his teammates have been great over these last few weeks. He is nothing but praise to those guys. He praises Hayden Shin constantly. He praises his attack man constantly. That's what he does. He's always, you've interviewed him a ton, Dave. He's always a team first guy. It's not always about him, even though at the end it is about him a lot of the time. But he always finds a way to talk about his teammates. And right now he should, because they've really stepped up recently.
That's so much why I love, as he kept talking about during the interview, the I am because we are. That says it about him, and it says it about the New Canaan team this year. And I'm really looking forward to Thursday's game because, like I said, this is the Rams team that we expected at the beginning of the year. And when you have New Canaan playing at the level it is right now, it always makes Darien New Canaan games extra special. And I think we're going to get a good one on Thursday, and that looks like that would be a good stopping point for this week's podcast. So we got a lot coming up this week, and I'm really excited to have Ian, and I have two girls from Staples, a great photographer named Dylan Goodman, and a good social media specialist, Georgia Cohn. So be on the lookout on social media and the site. Ian's going to do a great job with going to some games and doing video highlights and some interviews. Dylan, we got a lot of good photography projects set up, and Georgia's gonna do a bunch of interviews and do a lot of my my live social media. So Ian, thanks a lot for taking the time, and I hope you can put up with seeing a lot of me these next 4 weeks.
I think I can handle you, Dave. And I think the podcast has been a good warm-up. But honestly, thanks a bunch for the opportunity of doing the podcast with you. It's going to be a great time to do the internship because, FCIACs, I love them. It's made a lot of my career up to this point, and I pay heavy attention to them. And now I'll be forced to pay heavy attention to them. So I can't wait, because these next few weeks, the closing of the regular season and the FCIAC tournament, it's what these spring athletes deserve after not getting a season last year. So it's going to be really special.
Rob, looking forward to having you, and I'm easier to catch than Chris Canet if,
Yeah.
I can run, but I can't hide. So that's the Ruden Report podcast for this week. Again, I want to thank my co-host here and now official senior intern, Ian Nicholas. I want to thank the best sound editor in the business, Travis Bell, for all his help. I want to thank the Westport Library for its support of the podcast. And I want to remind you all that you can subscribe to the Ruden Report podcast on iTunes. And we always appreciate a good review, and it helps get the podcast distributed to a wider audience. And the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of Verso Studios or the Westport Library. Let's enjoy a big week of the regular season, and we'll be back to talk about it and preview the playoffs next week. Take care.